Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff We'll Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And we are so happy to be joined once again by the excellent, the exemplary Bridget Todd. Welcome back, Bridget.
Thank you for having me. Every time I come back to hang out with you all, the intros that you give are my favorite thing. They just leave me feeling so pumped up.
Yes. I was worried I would stumble over exemplary, but I think I
was to say, did you have that prepped ready to go? Like, what are the descriptors that I have for Bridget? This is the one I have.
I will admit, sometimes I do it off the cuff, and sometimes I'm like, you know what? Today I want to really pull something out that I haven't used before. So.
Well, also, you have to be thoughtful because it has to be true. We don't lie on this podcast. At least I don't think.
Not purposefully. Not purposefully, no. Bridget, how have you been?
Ooh, well, as someone who lives in the District of Columbia, that's always a loaded question. Yeah, it has been weird. The vibes in DC are, no one's having a good time. But, we're hanging in there. I think it's been interesting the ways that people are coping and like leaning into community, leaning into like what's happening on their block, things like that. I think people are really kind of focused on like what's happening at the local level to sort of distract from all of the dread happening at the national level here in DC. So it's been a lot. How are you all coping, feeling, hanging in there?
There's a lot of stress and anxiety, for sure. I will say today I have had a fun distraction at my friend's expense because her snake got out of its aquarium and she can't find the snake. And so I've been getting a lot of updates today about the search for the snake. And that's given me a lot of fun distraction. I do feel bad. If you're listening, Katie, I'm really sorry.
Did you say you can't find snake?
She can't find the snake. And she said this has happened before. And last time it took her 5 days to find the snake.
So this snake is out there.
The snake is in the house. And she was telling me, like, they can open cabinets and they can do all these things. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Wait, what?
That's what she told me. She's given me a lot of
fingers.
I believe that she would know, but
yeah, I guess so.
I've learned a lot about snakes from her over the years. She also had to like take the snake to a vet once because it was overweight. So basically, she had a diagram she showed me, and this was like she was like, "This is how you can tell the snake is overweight."
Oh,
so basically, finding my distractions where I can, but very stressed.
She has got to find that snake. It's probably.
I know.
Like, if they can open cabinets, what can't they do? It's probably doing her taxes and she's going to get audited. Like, you got to find this snake.
I know. What could the snake be up to? Oh, my gosh.
That's a cartoon I need to see. I'm just saying.
Now I'm
That's an amazing idea.
I'm so invested in this.
In little glasses and having his little type. Okay. All right.
One of those little visors and like an adding machine. I don't know why it's seeming it old-timey, but it is.
It's really
She's
old
had
school.
that snake for a long time.
How long do they live? I'm like so invested in the snake and in this snake story.
Me too. This has been like my whole morning. They live a long time. She's had him for at least 15 years, I think.
Wow.
And she's big. Her name is Penne.
Oh,
yeah, and she's a really big snake. But I've been told they can really compress themselves into small shapes.
Right. Yeah, that's why I'm like, if we went outside of the house, I wouldn't be surprised.
Are you all snake people? Like, would you entertain having a snake in your home voluntarily?
Hell no.
I had one as a kid.
How did I not know this about you?
Yeah. But it did escape, actually, now that I think about it.
Did you ever find it?
No, I never found him again.
Yeah. It might be one of those things where your parents were like,
I have suspected that before, actually. And then my brother had a snake, but I had a pet turtle, but my pet turtle ate his snake.
Oh, I was going to go opposite.
Turtles don't mess around, I'm telling you.
I had a pet fish that we kept in the same, I guess, like terrarium as a turtle. And the turtle, one day we came and the fish fin had been, there was like a nip out of it. And then one day we came and the fish was just gone. We probably should have removed it. This is a terrible story. Probably should have removed it after that first nip. But I was like, what's going on with this fish? It did not occur to me that the turtle had been snacking.
So the turtle's the villain here.
Yeah,
that's
turtles.
What I'm hearing.
They don't mess around.
Watch out.
Unexpected. Franklin told us lies. But yeah, so I will say allergies have gotten me. I've been lamenting this for the past week. So if I cough, I'm so sorry. I'm trying not to do it on mic. I'm trying also not to sniffle on mic. My voice is it's gotten better, but it's still a little lower than the typical sound from myself. But also, we did get a victory here in Georgia, in which we tabled House Bill 441, which is the Georgia Prenatal Equal Protections Act, and it would have it was an outright abortion ban with no exceptions whatsoever. But the fact that got that wasn't even voted for because there were so many people who were against it, small victories. So we're celebrating that here. A lot of activists went and protested at the state capitol. So, you know, I feel like that glimmer of hope is pushing us through.
Yeah. And like, honestly, take your W's where you can. And I think
Right.
it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, you have a little more control over what happens locally. So like, that's where you got to focus your energy, I feel like right now, if you're looking for something to do that feels like you could have an actual impact.
Right. And the fact that actually seemingly worked gives us a little more inspiration as we keep fighting. Because, you know, Georgia has a lot of work to do. So else the country.
Amen.
Yeah. Well, it's quite a doozy of a topic
I
you brought today,
know.
Bridget. But I'm really interested to learn more about it. So tell us, what are we talking about today?
Okay, we are talking about the one, the only Candace Owens. Speaking of villains, no, I'm just kidding. I mean, am I kidding? We'll see. So, like, I should say up top, like, I am weirdly fascinated with her. What do you all have thoughts? Is she somebody who is on your radar? What is your experience? What are your experiences with Candace Owens, or do you have any?
Mine are negative. Mine are mostly negative. But most of the stuff I know is more recent. And I didn't know a lot of what I know we're going to talk about in here. But I will say, generally, she's someone I'm very wary of, and I have a lot of negative associations with.
I will say, yes, I do know of her, of course. One of the things that I immediately put me on high alert is that she is one person that my racist, Trump-supporting, backwards brother has used as a token in saying, see, we love Black people.
Oh, that is like... That has probably been the experience of so many folks listening. And I guess what I want to talk about today might actually answer why that is, because she is someone that people in my life have like cited or mentioned, or like, oh, I saw Candace Owens talking about this. And I'm like, what? Like, why are you watching Candace Owens? Why are you listening to her podcast? So like, I am like weirdly fascinated by her. She is somebody who has a legitimately fascinating story, and like from where she started to where she wound up, I just find deeply interesting. I don't want to focus too much on her like personal background, but there are some pieces of her early story that I do think are important context for like understanding who she is and sort of the role she has gone on to occupy in the world. So Owens grew up in Stamford, Connecticut. And while she was a high school student there, she was like racially harassed in a pretty gnarly way. A classmate left her a racist death threat on her voicemail that ended up turning into like a pretty serious local scandal, because it turned out the person, her classmate that left that voicemail, did so in a group of students that included the son of the then mayor and future Democratic governor of Connecticut, Daniel Malloy. So it was really, really blown up into like a little bit of a scandal. Candace got lots of support from the local chapter of racial justice organizations like the NAACP, and her family ended up suing the Stanford Board of Education in federal court for failing to protect her rights, which resulted in a $37,500 settlement. After that, she goes on to study journalism at University of Rhode Island before dropping out. So this is really the part of her story where I have to be honest, I see some parallels between me and her. We're both Black women who were sort of early adopters of the internet to talk about things like race and culture and politics. Like me, for her, that seems to have manifested in a lot of like low-hanging fruit posts about, politics, like dumb jokes, like, the early days of blogging about politics online, it really was dumb jokes was like, and like stupid memes were the lifeblood of that. And so in 2015, she was writing blogs making fun of Trump's penis size, to give you a sense of the kind of thing that she was writing about, which honestly is something I wasn't doing that, but I could see myself doing it.
Right. I would definitely chuckle.
Yeah.
If I saw it.
So some people might be surprised to know that Candace actually started her career as like a public intellectual or a public opinion haver or commentator or whatever you want to call it as a leftist, like a progressive. In 2015, she was writing this blog called Degree 180, where she wrote pieces criticizing conservative Republicans, writing about, quote, the bat crazy antics of the Republican Tea Party. Something that she wrote in her blog was, quote, the good news is they will eventually die off peacefully in their sleep, we hope, and then we can get right on with the obvious social change that needs to happen immediately. So you really get a sense of her as someone who was this like young Obama era progressive using the early internet blogging and things like that to really put her voice and her perspective into the world. Again, something that like, frankly, I can really see myself in.
This is surprising.
It is.
I guess I didn't know her origins. I just knew when she came out swinging on the opposite end.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that, and I can definitely speak from my own experience here, is that I connected with a lot of her early writing when she was still sort of like writing about the Tea Party and blah, blah, blah. But certainly nobody knew, like she wasn't like a known voice or a known name, right? And I do think it speaks to the fact that like when she switched up her ideology and her perspective and what she was talking about, she got so much more attention. As a Black woman leftist who talks about, lefty stuff on the internet, we are a dime a dozen. Nobody's really paying that much attention. But when you do the switch up, you really become a much bigger name and you get a lot more attention and a lot more engagement. And I think it's a lot more lucrative to be a Black woman right-winger than it is to be a Black woman leftist.
I was actually reading about this recently, is the shadow of Gamergate when it comes to the internet and how it looks today and how it's still, like the impacts, just the fallout of it is still here. And that was a part of Candace Owens' story, correct?
Oh, yes. So I am like you, Anney. Gamergate and everything surrounding it is my Roman Empire. It is the thing that keeps me up. And I did a whole series with Cool Zone Media about how Gamergate and just general harassment against women and women of color and minoritized people, you could draw a direct line from that to like our political and social climate today. Like this is the stuff that I am like making a string board about and being like, and then this happened and then that happened. And then 10 years later, this happened. Like, this is my white whale. And Candace Owens was really like, Gamergate was really sort of like, she describes it as like a radicalizing moment for her. So in 2016, when Gamergate was in full swing, Owens launched a Kickstarter for a project she called Social Autopsy, which she described as a way to catalog the abuses of trolls and cyberbullies online. The Kickstarter for this project is still up today. Here's a little taste of Owens describing it in her own words.
It takes a nanosecond, a mere push of a button to share our ideas, opinions, and emotions across the world instantly. But for every cat meme your best friend tweets at you, or for every I miss you comment your grandma leaves on your Facebook wall, there are literally thousands of instances of hate speech being circulated online. Because when communication happens through a screen, and when moments are experienced through a lens, a terrifying extraction takes place. The age of technology and social media has slowly disintegrated individual accountability, the consequences of which are devastating.
So that should give you a little bit of an idea of what I mean. It's interesting because it really feels like a time capsule from a different time. You know, like hearing Candace Owens talk about how bad things like hate speech are and how it's dividing us is like just very interesting.
Yeah. It's throw off. Like, I'm like, wait, what? Same person? Okay.
Nope.
So the plan for Social Autopsy was basically, it was a project meant to like de-anonymize online commentators and then connect them with their real life names and then real life employers. And it's funny because this is still an argument that people make when they want to restrict the internet today, that like all of the problems that happen on the internet, from harassment to child exploitation material, all of that could all be solved if you needed like your government ID to access the internet. And so it's funny how these ideas, there are people pushing that concept today. And even, I mean, like some people who are well-meaning, but in my opinion, incorrect, are still pushing that idea. And so it's funny how some of these ideas never really die. They're just recycled. Like Candace Owens was talking about this in 2016, and here we are in 2025, still talking about it.
Yes, we are. But, oh my goodness. Speaking of things we're still talking about, another thing we've talked about a lot on this show, another thing I've been thinking about a lot lately, is the radicalization that can happen online. And Candace Owens kind of talks about this. This is sort of her experience with Gamergate.
So when exactly that. So when she came out with Social Autopsy, pretty much everybody hated it, right? Like it was like a universal digital boo or like thumbs down. And one of the people who was like really not into this idea was Zoe Quinn, whose name you might know if you know about Gamergate, because she was someone who was pretty viciously attacked in Gamergate. So after all of the backlash from this project that Candace tried to put out into the world via Kickstarter, she herself was doxxed and harassed. And Candace actually blamed Zoe Quinn and other feminists for this harassment and started saying so publicly. You can probably guess who loved this and like seized on it. That's right. People like Milo Yiannopoulos, people who were promoters of Gamergate and like doing the harassment of Gamergate, really hyped up Owens' claims that, yeah, it's the feminists who are the ones who are doing the actual online harassment, not, you know, these gamer bros and like right wingers. It's actually feminists who are the bad guys here. And this event, Owens credits with her turn from progressive to being what she calls a red-pilled radical. She says, quote, "I became a conservative overnight. I realized that liberals were actually the racists. Liberals were actually the trolls." And so, Anney, you're exactly right that like she describes this as like an overnight turning point of her going from being a progressive who was collaborating with the NAACP and writing about how awful Republicans and Trump and the Tea Party Republicans were, to like overnight waking up and being like, no, it is liberals who are the real enemy.
I have so many thoughts because I was not a part of the Gamergate world. Like I did not understand what was happening out there in the internets because I was case managing and like groveling in my own, like, oh, everything's worse. But like her being doxxed and all this, because I'm sure just as many like people who were feminists and who were victims of Gamergate and such, there were more probably jerks out there who were like, no, we were definitely against this idea, and harassing her because they don't want their name out there, which is what she was trying to do, right? So, but she just picked a group like, no, it's definitely, after she got so much support.
Totally. So my understanding is that like, and if folks listening are like, I was there, I remember, as far as I know, this was like feminists having good faith disagreement with Candace's project, and then Candace, probably pumped up by some of these like right-wing bro gamer guys who were behind a lot of this harassment, and like we have all the receipts for that, probably pumped up by some of them, just assumed that these feminists were the ones behind it. So like, as far as I know, this was not a documented thing, but certainly I was like pretty in the mix on the internet in these days. Certainly this feud between Candace Owens and feminists like Zoe Quinn about Gamergate was something that like got her name into the conversation in a way that I don't think it had been before.
And for a lot of attention seekers, not that she is, I don't know this person, I don't know Candace Owens in real life, but if this is what we're seeing, negative attention is just as good as the good attention.
Yeah, so it's so interesting that you say this because she's not someone that I would take at her word. I guess I'll put it that way. Like, I don't know how reliable of a narrator she is. However, when she says like, oh, overnight, I realized that feminists were the real enemy and the people that I should be aligning myself were people like Milo Yiannopoulos, I don't think that she's outright lying, but I think that what she's saying is probably a lot closer to what you've just said, Sam, that like what she realized was like, when I was just a feminist online, I didn't get a lot of attention. But when I started publicly beefing with these other feminists, I was getting a lot of attention. These right-wing extremist types like Milo Yiannopoulos, who had huge platforms, started paying me more attention and giving me more support, giving me more engagement. And like, I think there's something to this idea that like, I wouldn't necessarily say that she changed her ideological ideas. I think that what she realized was like, oh, if I align myself with people on the right, that comes with attention. Again, this is just my opinion. I don't know her, but that's my sense. I don't think that she's outright misrepresenting this shift, but I think it's not necessarily about an ideology so much as it is like, oh, public spats and rage bait and like spectacle gets me engagement and attention, and that can translate to dollars. Oh,
right.
I can play this game. That's right. my sense of what's going on here.
I mean, it sounds like she was finding a brand, and she is a brand, whether or not we want to admit that's the case, but she is a brand, and she's starting to hone in on this brand, and she's going to go for what gives her the most success. And
Yeah, and this was successful. Like, once she starts doing this, and she starts promoting right-wing viewpoints on YouTube, she had a YouTube channel called Red Pill Black, which I gotta say is actually like a pretty good name. I gotta credit where credit is due. It's like I like that branding. She catches the attention of Charlie Kirk, who founded Turning Points USA, who just like big right-wing media entity, and he hires her. So at this point, Candace goes from like a little no-name blogger blogging about lefty politics that nobody's ever heard of to like making huge viral videos that are getting so much attention, where she's doing things like dismissing the 2017 white supremacist Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville that left Heather Heyer dead. Alex Jones invites her to co-host some of his InfoWars shows. And again, like, keep in mind, I know they seem like fringe media entities, and in some ways they are, but they get so many viewers. Like, Alex Jones, at his height, was getting tons and tons and tons of eyeballs. She starts doing stints on Fox News. So, like, that's a little more mainstream than InfoWars, right? And in 2021, she joined the Daily Wire with a ton of fanfare. Like, this was a huge deal. She ends up moving to Nashville. And when she does that, the state even introduces House Joint Resolution 350, a resolution in the Tennessee government to congratulate Candace Owens on relocating to Tennessee for work at the Daily Wire that reads, quote, "Whereas Miss Owens has earned the admiration and respect of millions of Americans through her activism in support of President Trump as a Black woman and her perceptive criticism of creeping socialism and leftist political tyranny." Imagine moving to Nashville and it's such a big deal that like the government of Nashville makes it an official like proclamation in Tennessee government.
And if she steps outside of downtown Nashville, she's gonna get threatened. Like,
for sure.
I feel threatened outside. I felt threatened in a lot of places, but like, yeah. So, and as a person who was the only Asian person in a crowd, the tokenism is so loud. It's so loud.
I mean, mean, that proclamation, like, oh,
Wow.
like, we're proclaiming that she's great because she's a Black woman who likes Trump. Like, I mean, that's the thing is, like, this is one of the reasons why I think a lot about Candace Owens as, like, a kind of seductive quality that can come with being a person of color who is being uplifted as, like, some special thing, right? Some special one. And it's such a trap because I don't want to be anybody's token, right? I don't want to be anybody's, like, oh, like, this is a Black woman who's doing X, Y, Z. But I understand the seductive lure of that. And so, like, I don't know. I guess I almost sort of see Candace Owens as, like, a funhouse mirror version of myself. Like, if I were someone who was really moved or swayed by being uplifted because of these things that make me tokenizable, I can sort of see liking this. And so I sort of see a lot of, like, of my shadow self in Candace Owens, I guess I should say. Does that make sense? I probably sound...
No, yes. No, I think I understand. Because, like, my younger self seeking desperately to be white, seeking to be accepted by white people. So when I, in high school, not understanding the depth and depravity of white supremacy and how dark it is, like, sitting there arguing, no, not arguing, but agreeing with my and racist brother about the fact, yes, affirmative action is so awful. I want to earn it. I don't want to be, given special treatment because of my race. And that's not the case at all. That's not the conversation at all. But because of what I've been fed, and the minute I said that, he's like, see, she knows she's Asian. Like, he literally said that out loud and being so proud of me for understanding white supremacy, like in that way, but wanting to, like, liking that moment. Now I look back with shame, but at that moment I was like, yes, I'm one of you.
Yes, exactly.
You see me as you.
It's so seductive. And if you, like, I was the exact same way when I was younger, like, and it's like, nobody likes feeling excluded or like the other or like they don't belong. And so in those glimmers where you do feel like someone is saying, like, see, it feels good. And I think it's like, doing the work of training yourself to really see those moments for what they are and not, like, being pulled into the good feelings of, like, well, I'm getting feedback from my brother that's making me feel accepted and that he sees me and whatever. But, like, you really have to do the work to be like, well, is this actually what I want to be seen for? Like,
right.
Right.
I don't want to agree with you. Now I understand what I'm agreeing with, and this is completely wrong and against humanity. If Candace Owens is pulling the best grift of all time and just taking all the conservatives' money, like, if that was the end story to this, I'm like, if anybody deserves the Republican conservative money, it's a Black woman. So I can't really.
I hear that, right?
Like, this is smart. I mean, it's not smart. It's like, it feels like a betrayal, but for her on her individual level, coming in and being tokened to be on these multi-million-dollar shows, because, we know that Alex Jones made a lot of money from his hatred. We know that. We've seen it. He talks about it. We know Charlie Kirk as well. Her coming in and taking their money is kind of like, I don't hate it for you. Like, I hate what you're saying.
Yeah, so I used to think, and again, this is my opinion, I don't know her like that or anything, but, like, right. I used to think, like, certainly she's playing these people. She doesn't believe this. Now I don't know. Now I think she's, like, a true believer, but, like,
maybe
I go back and forth. And again, it's one of those things one of those reasons why I find her so deeply fascinating, right? Because, like, as a Black woman, I am tempted to, like, project, like, well, certainly this is some sort of it is a grift. Don't get me wrong. It is, like, sure a grift. Like, she grifting, can confirm. But, like, it really prompts me to look back at myself to be like, well, am I am I low-key rooting for her? Or, like, what is this? You know
right,
what I mean?
right. I'm like, you're not my favorite, but you're not the worst. Like,
exactly,
I can't figure out where you are in this spectrum. But, on top of all of that, as we were talking about in Nashville, being like, if you go outside of the cityscape and people don't know you, you're not going to get this love that you think you're getting from this very, again, white supremacist patriarch that you are representing and are trying to play for. Like, all these things, eventually they're going to turn on you.
Well, that actually happens in her story. So, when she's working at Daily Wire, you're thinking like, she's got this huge gig, probably making a ton of money, should be smooth sailing. But there is a huge, messy public fallout just a few years later. So she's working at Daily Wire. Last year, there was this public friction between Candace and Ben Shapiro, one of the founders of Daily Wire, the network that Candace used to be on. Now, it's not 100% clear exactly what caused the tension between the two, but at least publicly, it seemed to be some kind of a reaction to the situation in Gaza. Ben Shapiro is Jewish, and Owens has said a lot of anti-Semitic stuff. Like, even before October 7th, she was going hard, doing things like defending Kanye West, but things really seemed to kick into high gear with her anti-Semitism on October 7th. Now, it is important to make a distinction here that she's not, like, criticizing the actions of the Israeli state. She is getting into stuff like blood libel conspiracy theories, which is this anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that Jewish people drink blood for power, and like other deep, deep conspiracy theories, right? Like, she said that Judaism was a, quote, pedophile-centric religion that believes in demons and child sacrifice, and that people are waking up to the fact that pedophiles are in power. So she is saying some like truly out-of-pocket wild stuff. And then things start taking kind of a bent toward her employer. She wrote on Twitter, quote, "No one can serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and money." To which Ben Shapiro, her boss, replies, "Candace, if you feel that taking money from the Daily Wire somehow comes between you and God, by all means quit." Now, I gotta say, like, I don't find myself agreeing with Candace Owens or Ben Shapiro much, but I kind of feel like Ben Shapiro kind of has a point here. Like, this is her boss, and she is publicly getting into spats with him on Twitter. Not a good look.
Yeah. Could have maybe done that a little bit more privately.
Yeah, like, send an email. Like,
Yeah.
but that's the thing about Candace is like, Candace wouldn't be Candace if she did this privately. Candace wouldn't be Candace if she avoided this. Like, her career got a jumpstart from spectacle on Twitter. So like, that is like her bread and butter is like spectacle on social media. So it gets absolutely messy as hell, and it's all public. Owens claimed that Ben Shapiro had, quote, been acting unprofessional and emotionally unhinged for weeks now, and said that Shapiro crossed a certain line. When you come for scripture and read yourself into it, I will not tolerate it. She goes on Tucker Carlson's show saying that Ben Shapiro was attacking her using ad hominem attacks. She then tweets that she wants her and Ben Shapiro to sit down and have a discussion moderated by this podcaster, Patrick Bet-David. Ben Shapiro was having none of this. And again, I can't say that I blame him. Like, challenging your boss to a public debate on Twitter, it's just like not a good look. So when she was like, "Debate me, bro," Ben Shapiro tweeted, "Candace, I can see why you'd want to hide behind a moderator, particularly one who said we should rename our company, quote, the Daily Jewish Wire just yesterday. No, one-on-one Monday at 5 p.m. We can sit down and have a healthy debate like adults, and we'll live stream it on X and YouTube. Take it or leave it." So they're really going back and forth. And I gotta give a little side note here. For what it's worth, this is just like my personal opinion as somebody who has been around the block and worked in media for a really long time. The reason I am not saying that the actual root of their disagreement was Israel or Judaism, like 100%, is because I just smell some kind of a contractual dispute here. Something about the way that they are going back and forth reads to me like Owens maybe had like an inflexible ironclad contract that maybe she felt like she could make more money on her own and that she had to get out of this contract, or vice versa. Maybe Daily Wire wanted her out. Something about the intensity of the public escalation with her boss just suggests to me that something else might have been going on. Again, this is just my sense. I don't have any inside information. It just seems like a lot to be doing. It just seems like a lot to be doing. But again, this is Candace Owens we're talking about, the very definition of doing the most on social media. But that's just my sense.
I feel like it's the fact that they work so hard on like the conservative right wing side, that knowing that one person being Jewish and the other person being a black woman, I'm like, they're not on your side. Like, no, they just are just like wanting you to fight it out. This is what they want, so that they can retain more power. But you two, I mean, it's just. Is it ironic? I don't know, or is it just sad?
Listen,
that I'm seeing all
Sam,
this?
I was like watching this, like, get him, like I was like, let him fight. Like I was, my nosy was loving every minute, was like faving every tweet, reading, like, you know how it used to be on Twitter, you could like go to like show more to see like I was like, I need to start from the beginning. I was eating it up.
The novel.
And again, like, obviously Candace has hit on something, because like this public spectacle, these public spats, even with her employer, they do generate engagement. Like she's not new to this. She's true to this. Like, she's been using this kind of thing to get negative attention to boost herself for a very long time, and she's very good at it. So seems to be like the red line here was when Rabbi Shmuley Boteach criticized Owens for her defenses of Kanye West. Owens then liked a tweet asking the rabbi if he was, quote, drunk on Jewish blood again. A few days later, Daily Wire and Candace Owens officially ended their relationship, with Owens tweeting, "The rumors are true. I am finally free."
Whew.
There's so many things that I like. There's so many things to this level of conversation that, yes, it is. It's just like the song Francesco Ramsey did with like that lepers would eat your face, or like they didn't think that, and I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, with the way she ended, it does sound like it was a whole play to get out.
I don't know, but like she had to, like, there is no way that Candace did not think that like she was putting her job at risk, right? So I just do not buy that she was like, I'm going to be, these are my convictions and I can just say what I want and it's free speech and it'll be fine. There is no way. Like, if anybody listening has the real tea, I just can sense there's something else here. And it gives contract dispute to me. That's all I'll say. So this is where the story gets interesting to me, because she kind of fell off of my radar after this. I was like, oh, I guess she's out at Daily Wire. Hadn't really heard much from her. I guess she's like doing her thing. And it wasn't until I was trying to make sense of the dispute between these two Hollywood A-listers, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, that she popped up on my radar again. So I got to give a big PSA. This is not meant to be a definitive breakdown of what is happening with Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, which probably could be like its own episode. It is not a situation that I have followed super closely. So I am like not the right person to dig in on all of that. I don't have any kind of like take or anything it's not a situation that I am super read in on, because it's a little bit like complicated and I can't quite follow it. But that dynamic where I'm like, oh, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm sort of like casually trying to find out. That is actually how Candace Owens got back on my radar. So do you all know what's happening between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni? Is this something that's like been on y'all's radar?
It's been against my will.
Literally today, I was like, thank God I haven't heard anything about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. And then you said the outline, and I was like,
here we go.
Damn it.
I feel the same way. Everything I've learned about it has been against my will. I'm like, why do I need to like, what? Like, it's just like not something, I don't know. It's just like not.
I mean, in the end, like, because they were trying to compare it to the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case, which I'm like, yo, back off. There's so many things that the implication of that alone makes me think I don't want to take this seriously, because it's not to that level. We have this conversation because, like, we spoke very quickly before it blew up to this, like the very beginning of the conflict, mainly talking about how domestic violence victims and survivors really were offended by the way that the movie, which is the center of this controversy, was portrayed. And then how the ad marketing went for it, and like made it all girly, good times, all these things that people were like, this is really kind of offensive. Like this entire language of something that is very serious and people have taken very personally, and have like a lot of familiarity with and trauma with. And then felt like flat, especially like with how it is now, especially because it's no longer about the movie anymore. But like we took a small take on that and why romanticizing domestic violence is such a problem in Hollywood and just in our environment in general. But like this was way before everything happened, and the back and forth. I will say there's a lot of disdain for Blake Lively on my feed.
Yes.
Again, I did not choose this.
Okay, so it's so funny that you say this. I have experienced the exact same thing. So if folks don't know what we're talking about, if you are like Anney, blissfully unaware of like what is going on, it's a situation that's like a little bit complicated and it's ongoing, but it's actually like a pretty interesting story, and it does include a lot of things that I am interested in, like how celebrities use social media, how easily social media platforms can be like weaponized for or against a specific person, email correspondence where people make themselves look terrible in writing because they clearly do not expect these emails to be like in a deposition or in the New York Times. That is my personal favorite thing. Nothing, whenever it's like, oh, we have the emails, I'm like, I'm going to read every single one of them. Like, please continue to put your wrongdoings in emails and in writing so that my nosy can read them later in a deposition. So like, I do think that folks should like, if that seems like the kind of situation that you are interested in, like it is a meaty situation. So like, definitely listen to podcasts about it or whatever. But for our purposes, a quick and dirty summary of what's going on is that Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni were in a movie adaptation of the popular Colleen Hoover novel called It Starts With Us. In December, Lively filed a legal complaint against Baldoni, accusing him of sexual harassment and starting a smear campaign against her. Now, he strongly denies that and has sued in response. Both camps are releasing information like text messages and emails and like videos and voicemails to make each other look bad. So the case has turned, I mean, kind of similar to the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. It's one of those situations that has turned into like an ink blot test that changes depending on what version of the story that you buy. In version 1, Blake Lively was being sexually harassed on set by this like fake feminist male ally who was actually an abuser. In version 2, Blake Lively is like this egomaniac who is using her star power and like A-list celebrity network like her husband, Ryan Reynolds from those Deadpool movies, to control the narrative around her being a nightmare on set and steamrolling everybody else on this project. So Sam, like you, kind of similar to the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing in some ways, I think depending on what silos of the internet you are in, you might be algorithmically being given the idea that the public sentiment leans one way or another. Like on TikTok, for whatever reason, my TikTok algorithm thinks I hate Blake Lively and that I want to see like lots of videos like pouring over every nuance of the ways in which she is a fraud, which is not true. She's not someone who like I spend really any time at all thinking about. But it's interesting that like the algorithm thinks like, oh, this is somebody who hates Blake Lively.
Right. I agree. For some reason, I am getting all of the tea on all the awful things that Blake Lively is and all the people who hate her and why they hate her. And I'm like, I have never once. I don't know if I've ever seen a Blake Lively movie. I don't think I have.
Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants?
No.
Oh, okay. That's usually the one people know. Like that, or I will say whatever you want about Blake Lively. The movie A Simple Favor slaps. She's great in that.
Did you get the tea on how much they hate each other on that?
What?
That's been on my feed too.
I did see an interview where who is her co-star in that?
Anna Kendrick, right?
Anna Kendrick, where they're asking her about Blake Lively. She does have a very weird response.
Apparently they hate each other. And that's what I've understood. That's what they're telling me because they don't ever show up together on the red carpet. So when I say my feed really feeds into the fact that I must hate Blake Lively when I don't know this person. And I'm like, not that I know any celebrity like that, but I'm like, but I've never at one point have I looked her up or like she's not on my feed. I don't look her up on my like searches. I guess the one time it was for It Ends With Us. Damn it. Every time I research something for the show, it messes me up. But anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. That is, I'm like, I guess we really don't trust Blake Lively. We being TikTok.
Yeah.
My TikTok
so
FYP.
Like, the same as you, like I was trying to get to the bottom of like what was going on with this Justin and Blake thing. And one of my cousins, who I would like lovingly describe as a normie, and that she's not like super online, she's not, deep in the depths of like extremism or anything like that, like the way that I am. My cousin is like, oh, there's this Black girl journalist who has really been following the story and breaking it down. We will tag you so you can figure out what's going on. And that journalist was Candace Owens. And I was like, what? Like, what? Like, I could not believe that my cousins, who were like, not at all in, like, they're not people who are like poring over the minutia of what's happening on the internet and extremism the way that I am. Like, they're pretty offline. Would ever, like, I was like, how did you even get Candace Owens on your radar to be like listening to her podcast or watching her YouTube? And the reason is because she has introduced herself to a brand new subset of listeners and audience by covering this Blake Lively thing. So her coverage very clearly takes an anti-Blake stance. As The Cut put it in a piece called "Candace Owens Has Gone Mainstream," quote, "The right-wing commentators' coverage of the Blake Lively-Justin Baldoni case has reached millions of viewers. Owens' podcast was hours and hours of analysis of the case, deep dives into court filings, tabloid news stories, even Ryan Reynolds' recent appearance on Saturday Night Live's 50th anniversary special. She's really been able to go in and pinpoint discrepancies in some of the things Blake Lively has said, rather than having us go through it on our own," one listener says. Though she recognizes that Owens seems to have a pro-Baldoni bias, she doesn't care. Candace is urging us to look past the fact that this is not a feminist issue at all, that it's about getting justice for whoever is being wronged. She's uniting the left and the right. So, I mean, it's just like, it is, I mean, on the one hand, it seems surprising that this like celebrity story would be the thing that like would galvanize an audience of mostly women and introduce Candace Owens and who she is and her ideologies and all of that to a new audience. But on the other hand, like, that's pretty much exactly what they do, what they did at the Daily Wire. Like, nobody was more obsessed with celebrity than people like Ben Shapiro. They loved like taking down woke Disney, woke Star Wars. Like he had a big feud with Meg Thee Stallion, Beyonce. Like, just because it's negative doesn't mean it's not fandom. It's just like going in the other direction.
Right. Actually, we need to say he had a one-sided beef with him because they did not. Like, it just makes me laugh. You know, the other part to this, with as much as my algorithm wants to show me all of the anti-Blake Lively stuff, as well as all of the controversy, because yes, I would get updates about the SNL thing, about how everybody snubbed Ryan Reynolds. I was like, did they? Okay. But like, interestingly, I did get content, not from Candace Owens, but other creators reminding me and everybody listening that Candace Owens is a right-winged fanatic and that they need to be wary of the information she's giving about this specific case.
Yes. So I think that's like why I wanted to make this episode, just as a general reminder of who Candace Owens is. And like, we all love celebrity gossip. I know I do, but like, let's just remember who she is and the source. And like, she might want to rebrand herself, but let's just keep it at the forefront of our minds who she is and what she's about. And like, she really has exploded in popularity from this coverage. You know, it's been attracting a lot more viewers beyond her normal right-wing extremist base, like you were saying, Sam. It's like normies like my cousins who might not have any idea who she is. They just think she's an entertainment journalist. All of this has meant explosive growth and engagement for Owens. Here's how The Cut put it in that piece. Since Owens started covering the Lively Baldoni case, her YouTube channel has exploded in popularity, allowing her to attract a much larger fan base than the audience of hardcore conservatives she has amassed over the years. Each episode about Lively and Baldoni racks up at least 1.5 million views. In the past month alone, Owens has amassed more than 450,000 new subscribers on YouTube, and her total video views have quadrupled since this time last year, according to data from the analytics platform Social Blade. Over the past 3 months, her audience on YouTube has also started skewing 65% female, according to data provided by a spokesperson, a marked shift from her past fan base. So this has all been great news for Owens, and where her audience used to be like men, you know, like probably like your brother, right? Like right-wing men. By covering this story, she's really attracting a lot of women.
Oh, My stomach kind of hurts. It is really interesting that this came in with Gamergate as well, because like we were saying, Gamergate was such a mess, and there were so many men who would be like, see, this woman agrees with me, and I hate it, because sometimes I'm like, why can't I just want to have a conversation about why I don't like this game, and now you've made it into this woman agrees with me, and now you're using it to attract more women to be like, see, we're on the we are correct and you are wrong. And so when you see things like this, where she started out with mostly men and then she's attracting like all of these women, I feel like it's worth asking, why do you think this took off for her, this story?
So one, I will say that like Candace actually is pretty interesting to listen to. Like, I don't agree with what she's saying, but she does, like, even when she was a progressive blogger, she does have like a point of view and a clear voice. And I think that really comes through in her coverage of Blake Lively. You know, she has this way of speaking that signals to you like, oh, this person is really breaking it down. It's the same reason why things on TikTok, things like story time or like I'm spilling the tea, really holds people's attention. I think that Candace really does know how to do that, one. I think the second kind of gets at what you were saying, Anney, that we just love misogyny. And I think if that misogyny can be laced with like a thread of conspiracy, it's even better, right? Like social media platforms are always going to amplify things like misogyny or misogynoir or racism or transphobia. I think all of that is just baked into what it means to show up on social media. And I think Owens really, in a savvy way, takes that a step further by breaking all of this down like she's explaining a conspiracy, right? So she's not just saying like, here's my take on Blake Lively, or here's what's going on with the Blake Lively case, or, you know, here's why I don't like Blake Lively. She has this tinge of like, she's uncovering this dark truth about this successful woman to take her down. Like, of course that's going to take off. People love that. So the fact that she's not just giving information about Blake Lively, she's doing it in this way that's like, let's go back through 15 years of footage of her speaking and dive through the minutia of everything that she said on camera to highlight the discrepancies, to show what a dark, twisted person she is. Like, of course people are going to love that. And I think that one of the reasons why people like conspiracy theories is that it really does allow for like fantasy and world building to become part of this coverage, right? Like Candace's coverage of Blake Lively is wild because she is a truly wild person. And so if you're someone who is just like wants to get the brain rush of like going down a deep rabbit hole, whether or not it's true or whether or not it's like made up, that's going to be enticing for you. You know, as Owens herself puts it, she does not follow a, quote, traditional style of reporting. That's putting it pretty lightly. She will amplify rumors, right? Like she once even read a letter that she said was from Ryan Reynolds' acting coach from when he was 12 years old. And that acting coach allegedly said Ryan Reynolds was obnoxious as a 12-year-old. Like there are side characters and stuff. Like she really fleshes out this world of what she's saying. Is it real? Is it accurate? Who cares? Of course, people are coming to hear that tea on a story they're invested in.
Right. I feel like, though, like this is definitely in her alley, in her wheelhouse, in that this feeds into the Hollywood demons kind of trope, as well as like her response to the Me Too movement. I know like she was definitely anti-feminist in that movement as well. Like this kind of all feeds into that perfectly for her.
Yes. So I think that's another reason why this has taken off, because I think that like there is something inherently inviting about the power of like taking a contrarian stance on something. Like after Me Too, lots of women got engagement by taking a contrarian stance. Ironically, Blake Lively praised both Woody Allen and Harvey Weinstein. That last one is going to be interesting to note for later. So I think there is this attitude where like going against convention, you know, if there's a convention that says we automatically got to support the woman in any situation, it probably makes people who are turning to Owens' coverage and her breakdowns feel like free thinkers who are going against the grain and like willing to take an unpopular opinion, which feels good. Like it feels good to think of yourself in that way, which then obviously connects to some of her more like odious stances about trans people and women and Jewish people. Like if you can get people introduced to the idea that it's like good to take an unpopular opinion when you're talking about a celebrity that people don't like, imagine how then you can walk them down to be like, and also don't you not like trans people? And also don't you think women should not have jobs? And also don't you not like Jewish people? Like, it's like kind of all coming from the same place.
Yeah. Okay. So she's very engaging and it's sort of like, here's some celebrity gossip. Let me give you this conspiracy theory and also kind of this hate on the side. Right. But it's been very successful. But has the new audience changed her stances at all?
That's a great question. According to Owens, she has not really changed her views despite her rebrand. She says, in terms of my perspective, I haven't changed anything. I've been anti-Me Too since long before it was cool. When it comes to the... which, like...
Oh,
first of all,
that's... What?
As, like, feminist media makers, do you think, like... I just am so curious about that take of, like... First of all, just the assumption that, like, it's cool to be anti-Me Too right now.
I mean,
I don't know. I just have a lot of questions.
This is definitely that whole like red pill level of women trying to be the, I hate this term, but like the pick me, like be like, it's now cool because the boys like me. Like that's what it sounds like. 'Cause most women who have been through these processes or who are survivors would never say
it's so...
like the level. People, not even just like survivors, people with conscience, like that in general. That's not a statement you want. That's not a winning statement.
It's not. That's a good way to put it. It's not a winning statement. And when it comes to the success of the content that she's made around Blake Lively, Candace says that she thinks her new fans, especially the ones coming from the left, have, quote, just kind of gotten wise to the fact that maybe women lie just like men. And do you want to know what her next big issue is going to be? Like after she moves on from Blake Lively, she's already signaled to what it is.
Oh, really? Because we're still in the middle of this. The lawsuit hasn't been settled. But okay, what is it?
She's got plans.
She's already looking to what, I mean, like, it's not going to last forever. She's already got a sense of like where she's going next. Oh. Her next big issue is going to be championing Harvey Weinstein, the disgraced filmmaker that really did kickstart the Me Too movement. She's been interviewing him by phone since 2022. Here's how The Hollywood Reporter explains it. Candace's takeaway is that while Harvey Weinstein is an immoral man, he's also a victim of the justice system. Owens, a longtime and persistent critic of the Me Too movement, of which the Harvey Weinstein saga served as the watershed, noted that, quote, I've always had faith in our court system, and now that's beginning to change. Now I'm wondering if our courtrooms have been politicized. I love that it's Harvey Weinstein being convicted, that she's like, are the courts not on the money?
No.
I'm sure there's some other serial killers that she should represent as much. Like, this is... Okay, to be fair, she has her fingers on the pulse in that knowing this is gonna drive up attention. Like she is gonna get the publicity that she wants with that. Like how bigger could you go outside of being like, I'm gonna go dig up Hitler and interview him and tell him I miss him. Like that's
yeah,
you know.
I mean, she agrees with you. She said that she's putting out a series called Harvey Speaks. And when asked about it, she said, quote, it will explode the world. That's a direct quote.
Oh my gosh.
She's a businesswoman for sure.
Yeah, we all have that to look forward to. I mean, again, like, I cannot deny that this is smart. Like, I don't agree with it. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good for the world. But like, I think she has her finger on the pulse of what is actually going to be projects to put out that will capture people's attention for better or for worse. And I think like she's really got something. She's like cracked into something.
Yeah, for better or worse, indeed. She has, and every time we talk to you, Bridget, we always talk about how the algorithms in so many of our social media pushes this content up, and how we engage in it. So she's figured it out. She's figured that out.
And I think you're exactly right. And I think that's the so what of this story is that, Candace has so many other things going on. Like she's pivoting into other kinds of programming. She's branding out into doing a book club for paying subscribers and a fitness program. And I think that I believe her when she says that she's not rebranding. I think rather she is trying to rebrand her followers, these new followers, many of whom are just women who are interested in this scandal. I believe that the point is for them to be walked down a pipeline that includes her other extremist attitudes, really using this Blake Lively celebrity scandal as the hook. And I think because celebrity stories, especially ones that involve women, are so often just considered fluff. So a lot of people who care about extremist content or ideology might not be paying that much attention to how these stories that you might see on Us Weekly are tapping into those ideologies and unleashing those ideologies on a brand new audience. And so I think that's especially concerning when you're talking about things like celebrity, because, when I'm reading celebrity scandals or reading Us Weekly, I might not be primed to have my BS detector on and up, because it just is you think of it as a less charged space. And so I think that it really can be more dangerous because it lends itself to people being more susceptible to ideological content they might not be expecting without even realizing it. And I think it's very easy for Candace Owens to go from saying Blake Lively is lying to women lie to women can't be trusted to women should not have jobs, which I'm not just pulling that out of nowhere. That is a stance that Candace Owens has explicitly advocated for, that women should not have employment. They cannot be trusted with work, despite herself obviously being a working woman. So basically you just can't trust her. She's not someone that you can trust. Don't let her rebrand as a celebrity journalist fool you. If somebody tags you in a video of hers to be oh, she's really breaking it down, just remember that she is trying to soften what it is that she advocates for and believes in. And we shouldn't let her do that. We should really remember who she is and what she's about, because she's made it very clear.
Right. I mean, she's definitely on the same lines of what we've seen as a new generation talking about young men on podcasts and how they've been able to influence young men. This is coming in as influencing young women. I mean, just today, I'm seeing a lot of content about how the younger generations are being red-pilled, as they would say, which is fitting here. And things like the soft life content being a beginning for a lot of young women not realizing they're getting that kind of brand. We've talked about that with self-care. We've talked about that with yoga and the clean lifestyle type of thing, how that easily becomes a pipeline for the conservative right-wing community. And this is kind of that big sway, except that we see her branding and we know who she is. But if you don't know from jump her stance, this is definitely a worrisome tactic, because we know things like true crime and celebrity gossip, it's geared towards young women. It's geared towards women in general, and they also spend a lot of money and they spend a lot of time in it, investigating and taking part of it. So it's really worrisome. It is comical, as we were talking at the beginning, what is this, to very concerning and understanding that when we let this stuff go, like you were saying, this is fluff content, but in actuality is feeding into a conservative ideal that becomes mainstream and is usually really dangerous.
Yeah. So when people are oh, I just want to listen to my true crime podcast, I don't want to get political, or I just want to read about celebrities, I don't want to get political. I hate to break it to you, all of that stuff is political. All of that is all political. And it can be harnessed to shift attitudes of people who are being oh, this is not political, into more extremist ways of thinking. And so if you are a savvy consumer of media or a savvy consumer of anything, whether it's true crime content or celebrity content or yoga or wellness content or any of that, we really got to be primed and thinking about the ways this content can be so easily weaponized to spread a certain ideology that we might not want to get mixed up in.
Absolutely. Oh, every time you come here, Bridget, I'm we have 15 million other topics we need to talk about. But thank you as always for coming on and taking the time. We love to have you. Where can the good listeners find you?
Well, you can listen to my podcast on iHeartRadio called There Are No Girls on the Internet. You can check me out on Instagram at Bridget Marie in DC. And would love to hang out there.
Yes. And go do that, listeners, if you haven't already. You can find us. You can email us at hello@stuffwenevertoldyou.com. You can find us on Blue Sky at Mom Stuff Podcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff We Never Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have a TeePublic store and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff We Never Told You is a production by iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.